In April 2016, Kumamoto was hit by a magnitude 6.54 shock, followed 28 hours later by a magnitude 7.3 main shock, a sequence severe enough to cause roughly 63 billion yen in damage and shake down 40,000 individual stones from the walls of Kumamoto Castle alone. A decade later, with an entire prefecture's worth of hindsight and rebuilding data available, the honest question is not whether that earthquake was real and serious. It was. The honest question is what 10 years of evidence actually says about buying a cheap, older house anywhere near it today, and the answer turns out to depend on almost nothing about Kumamoto specifically. Japan's seismic building codes exist in 3 distinct eras, and the 2016 Kumamoto earthquakes became one of the most thoroughly studied real-world tests of all 3. Houses built before 1981, designed only to withstand moderate shaking, collapsed at roughly 28% in the hardest-hit areas. Houses built between 1981 and 2000, under Japan's first major seismic revision, collapsed at only about 9%, a dramatic improvement but still short of what came next. Houses built after the year 2000, once mandatory soil testing, structural hold-down hardware, and balanced wall placement became law, collapsed at roughly 2%, a result close to negligible for a magnitude 7 direct hit. That is not a story about Kumamoto being dangerous. It is a controlled, real-world experiment showing that the single variable that mattered was the year a house was built, not the ground it stood on. Researchers studying the 2016 event specifically noted that even within the 1981 to 2000 category, older wooden houses still showed connection weaknesses between walls and foundations, the exact flaw the 2000 revision was written to fix, which is why that final jump to 2% collapse matters so much more than the numbers alone suggest. This is where most Akiya buyers ask the wrong version of the safety question. Is Kumamoto safe? Treats an entire prefecture as one risk category, when the 2016 data says the opposite. A post-2000 house in Kumamoto was dramatically safer than a pre-1981 house anywhere else in earthquake-prone Japan, including places that have never made national news for a major quake. Most Akiya, by definition older buildings inherited from aging owners, skew heavily toward the pre-1981 and 1981 to 2000 categories. This data flags as higher risk, which is exactly why this channel keeps repeating that a structural inspection is not optional caution. It is the single most important document in the entire purchase. The right question was never about the prefecture. It has always been the same question this channel repeats for every region. What year was this specific building actually constructed, and has it been inspected and retrofitted to reflect it? Look at what recovery has actually looked like on the ground, and it tells its own honest story. Kumamoto Castle's main keep, the most visible symbol of the disaster, reopened to the public in 2021, 5 years after the quake, a genuine and meaningful milestone. But full restoration of the entire castle complex is not projected to finish until 2052, 36 years after the earthquake itself. That timeline is not a sign of failure. It is what real, careful, well-funded reconstruction actually looks like when done properly rather than rushed, and it mirrors the broader prefecture. Visible, tangible progress alongside acknowledgement that full recovery is a generational project, not a 5-year headline. Layer that onto Kumamoto's ongoing multi-billion-dollar semiconductor investment, discussed elsewhere on this channel, and the picture is a region that keeps choosing to rebuild and reinvest rather than one written off as too risky to bother with. So, is it safe to buy an Akiya near Japan's earthquake zones, using Kumamoto as the test case? The honest answer is that near an earthquake zone describes essentially the entire country, not a specific danger unique to one prefecture. What actually determines your risk is the same thing the 2016 data proved beyond argument: the seismic standard the specific building was constructed under, and whether it has since been inspected and reinforced to match. A pre-1981 Akiya deserves real caution and a real retrofitting budget, in Kumamoto or anywhere else in Japan. A post-2000 building has already demonstrated, under an actual magnitude 7 test, that modern Japanese construction standards work. 10 years of rebuilding has not made Kumamoto risk-free. It has made the risk legible, tied to a building's age rather than its address. which is exactly the kind of question a proper inspection is built to answer before you sign anything. If this made Japan's empty house market a little clearer, subscribe to Akiya Handbook, the channel that explains how Japan's cheap houses actually work, honestly, and without selling you anything. There is also a free guide waiting in the description, the Akiya Buyer's Starter Guide, how to buy a cheap house in Japan without getting burned. 11 chapters on the truth about so-called free houses, the hidden costs, and who should not buy. No hype, and completely free. The link is below. Thanks for watching.